Folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're building some more cubbies. Now this is kind of part of the baby room series that accidentally happened. This cubby is going to go in a standard closet above the dresser we built, and it's going to have 3 sections and then a little bit of piping on the bottom for hanging clothes. But today we're just gonna focus on the building of the cubbies. It's super simple. It takes about a half a sheet of plywood, and really all you need is a circular saw, a drill, and some screws, and some wood glue. So without any further ado, thanks again for joining me, and let's jump right into it. So I think I'm gonna make, this is decent plywood. I think I'm gonna make the cubbies 12 inches deep, and I'm also gonna make them 12 inches tall. The openings, that is. So let's cut out our parts. I need 2 12-inch by 48-inch pieces. I need 4 dividers because I want 3 cubbies. And then I'm gonna cut out a small strip for our French cleat, which is how we're gonna hang this, which is what I think makes this a real slick cubby system. Because it hangs right on the wall, it's super strong, and you won't even know it. People will be like, how is that hanging there? Yeah, let's do it. All right, so we have our pieces cut out. You know, one thing I should show you is how to determine how wide your cubbies need to be in order to have even cubbies. So say you want 3 even cubbies in our case, and we have a 48-inch wide opening. What's the spacing, including the dividers? So this method works great for pretty much any sort of cubby system. You can do it vertically or horizontally like we're doing here. It works good for bookcases and whatnot. Basically, all you need to know is your total width and how many cubbies you have and the width of the dividers. So in our case, we have 3 cubbies that we're wanting, and each of our dividers is 3/4 inches. So 3/4 and 3/4 is 1.5. We'll then subtract 1.5 from our total width of 48. That gives us 46.5. And now because we want 3 cubbies, we're then going to divide 46.5 by 3. And that gives us 15.5, which is the width of each cubby. Cool, so now we actually have everything cut out. We have our 4 pieces that we're gonna need. This includes the top, the bottom, the dividers, and the back, which is going to be a French cleat, like we said. Now, I did go ahead and I put 2 coats of shellac on here. This is a good time to do that, I feel, just because things that are square, when they're all put together, are just a little bit harder to sand and put finish on. So the next step, now that we've determined the spacing on our dividers, let's go ahead and mark where they're going to go. I'm just gonna measure in each side 15.5 inches, mark the outside of that divider, and then I'm actually gonna measure over 3/4 and mark that, just so I have a good, clear idea of where those dividers are gonna go, and I can kind of start to visualize it. So let's do that. So when we're marking these, we're just gonna make sure we do it on 2 of them, right? Because we just need them on the insides of the top and the bottom section. So there's 15.5. I move over 1, 2, 3/4. And there's my second line, and I'm gonna do the same over on the other side. Now I'm marking from the outside in. We're gonna put our end cap on there. That's gonna be our end divider rather than have, so we're kind of offsetting our structure here. And then I'm gonna come in with a square, and I'm gonna mark that full line. Now, another reason I put the finish on before this is so I can just sand this Sharpie off when it's done. All right, so I think you could get away with just dropping your divider in and gluing and screwing it, but just to be safe and just to kind of show you another technique here, we're actually gonna make these a dado. Now we're going to do it with a circular saw. Well, in my case, it's gonna be a track saw, but I've done this with a circular saw and a level, and it works just the same. Now you could use a dado stack, but if you don't have one of those, like most people don't have one of those, and frankly, I just don't feel like setting mine up, so we're gonna do it this way. Here's the secret sauce. We want these to be perfectly aligned so our cubbies are square. So what I'm gonna do is line up my dados, my sections we just marked, 15.5 inches in. I'm gonna line those up, and then I'm gonna press my boards together, and I'm gonna grab some painter's tape. I kind of prefer this yellow stuff. I'm gonna tape the boards together. The other benefit of this yellow stuff is you can kind of see through it. And now when I cut these, instead of cutting 4 of them, I only have to cut 2 of them, and I know they're perfectly even. So that, I mean, I don't know, I love this technique. Sweet. So, there's our dados. They're 1/4 inch deep and they fit our 3/4 inch plywood pretty darn perfectly. So, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these middle dividers. I'm gonna cut those, and I'm not gonna cut the outside end caps yet, because just to account for human error, that would be me, I wanna fit those first, install them, and then measure the height of my cubbies, then I'll cut those pieces. Okay, so I've got my parts cut out now, and I realized something that I didn't think of before. Okay, so we have our divider, and then we have our dadoed top and bottom, and then we have our backing, which is gonna be the French cleat, like I keep saying. If I decided, what I was thinking was I was gonna drop these in here, and then I was going to put these end caps on, but then if I do that, I'll have 1.5 inches that this back piece won't cover. So I ended up cutting these. Everything is gonna butt up against, so outside ones are gonna go there, inside ones are gonna go in the dados, and then another outside one there. So it's actually 1.5 inches skinnier than it was, but that's fine. Still using that 48-inch piece, so we're still only at 1/2 piece of plywood. So now I'm gonna glue this up. I'm actually only gonna put glue in the dados, and then I'm gonna put this thing down flat on my bench, and I'm gonna call the bench side of this the front, so I know the front is perfectly flat. The back, if there's any kind of deviation, it's gonna be in the back so you won't see it. That's pretty much how I make all my cabinets. This one fits perfect. That one might need a smidge of a sand. It's a nice tight fit, I like that. So drop those right in. Where's my other one? All right, I marked these already, so I'm gonna countersink and screw these in, which if I didn't get it tight enough with the hammer, this is gonna do it. And if you're curious, I'm gonna plug these, probably just with like a dowel, poplar dowel, just cause you really won't see them anyway, but. Okay, so you know what I'm realizing now as I'm putting this together? I do like how it's coming out, but, and hopefully it's not noticeable, but you know, because I changed that these weren't gonna be on the end, these are gonna be 3/4 of an inch shorter than they're supposed to be. How much do I care? I guess not that much. You know, if I was gonna do it again, I'd fix it, but I don't think it's gonna be that noticeable. Okay, so we got a good start on our cubbies here. The dados are nice and dry. Everything's dried and glued up. But because it's plywood, I do want to cover up these ply. So I think the easiest method to do this is probably that iron-on edge banding, which I have a little bit of, but I don't have enough to do this. So instead, I had some maple strips just kicking around, and I ran them through the drum sander, and I think I'll be able to, I'm just gonna glue them. So I'm just gonna glue them with painter's tape. That's a trick I'll show you. But yeah, we're just gonna glue those right onto the front and cover up all that ugly plywood. Then we'll sand it and we'll put the back on. All right, let's make this pretty. All right, so we've got that quote unquote face frame stuck on here, glued and taped like you saw it, and then I ran around with a flush trim bit trimmed it to the same width as the plywood, and then again I hit it with just an 1/8 inch round over, which honestly you could probably achieve the same thing with sandpaper, but I just think it's a little bit easier, and this is maple so it doesn't tend to tear out too bad. Last piece of the cubby section is going to be this. Remember, we have this leftover piece. I'm gonna do something that seems drastic, but you'll see why it works in the end. I'm going to rip this like right down the center with a 45-degree angle. Okay, so I've decided, let's see here. I dinged up a piece of this, so this side's the top. So the way this is gonna work, this piece of our French cleat is going to get glued and screwed here, and then this piece is going to get screwed into the studs in our wall. And so if you can picture it, the cubbies itself will drop right down onto there. With any luck, when you flip this thing around, the inside will be completely seamless. So let's go ahead and secure this. So I threw some Odie's oil on this on top of that shellac that we put on before. I need a paper towel here. The last step here is I want to put 2 little hanging sections. One right here and one right here for little baby clothes hangers and little baby clothes under there. So this is kind of a, you can skip this step if you're happy with the floating cubbies the way they are. I wanted to just add this in at the end to show you kind of how I like to do things like this. I actually really enjoy building stuff out of black pipe. You'd know this if you saw the kitchen shelving building video. I also use this in the walk-in closet. I've used this stuff for a lot of things because it's relatively inexpensive and you can kind of just configure it however you want. I'll also link the description where I get this stuff, Zorro.com. Zorro, yeah, like the masked guy with the sword. It's the cheapest place to buy black pipe. Don't go to Home Depot or Lowe's for this. It's gonna be like twice as expensive. So I've got a 12-inch section of pipe and some 90-degree bends. So now I can make myself a little loop. I can't remember what these are called, but I'll link them. They have circular ones with 4 holes, and then I just found these little guys with 2 holes, which I think I like better, to be honest with you. This is all 1/2-inch piping, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. So we'll screw these things on here and then bam. So I will screw that on, and now all of a sudden we have a little hanging section under the cubby. So when it's all said and done, you can hang clothes on there. Let's install these. Now that the cabinet's complete, it's time to install that French cleat I've been talking about. And this part is really easy. You can see with the blue painter's tape, I've just marked my studs, and I've also marked the general height of where I want this thing hung. So it helps to have 2 people. Allie's gonna hold this section of the French cleat while I screw it into the studs. We're gonna check for level along the way, and then once that's complete, we will go ahead and hang the cubbies on that cleat. You'll be able to see here that the reason I had to keep it 48 inches is so I could fit it through that closet opening. But once it's in there, it drops right down on that 45-degree cut, and your French cleat is complete. Now, it takes a little bit of bulling and jamming to get it in place, but once it's there, it is very, very secure.
I was never the one to write up a song for just anyone. I was always the one to find myself lost in old conversations. Cause I've always been told that things will unfold if you keep on waiting. But then you came along and proved me all wrong. I was so mistaken. Cause you glue all the pieces back together. Yeah, you take all my wrongs and make them better. Yeah, you're making me wanna try forever. And I feel so free, oh my sweet baby.